Hello, I'm Atlanta City Council member Andre Dickens. Census 2020 is upon us. The results of the census impact every aspect of our daily lives. Congressional representation, funding for schools, roads, and even hospitals. It's all determined by data from the census. It's just a few easy questions and will only take 10 minutes to complete. You can respond online, by phone, or by mail. ATL counts. Census 2020. Atlanta is counting on you.
Each election year, I'm reminded of the sacrifices that were made so that I could exercise my right to vote. I think about the fear that must have gripped the hearts of those who placed themselves in harm's way, opening the door for me, you, and future generations. These were incredibly courageous men and women. Among them, our nation's greatest civil rights leaders, Hosea Williams, C.T. Vivian, and Congressman John Lewis, and others who risked their lives so that we could cast our ballots freely. Let us not take the right to vote for granted. I'm Atlanta City Council member Andrea Boone, reminding you to get registered to vote. The deadline for the November 3rd election is October 5th. Go to registertovote.sos.ga.gov. That's registertovote.sos.ga.gov. Let us honor the memory of those who made our ability to vote possible. Don't let their efforts go in vain. Let your voice be heard. Register and vote. Thank you.
I'm Phyllis Jackson. Glad you could join us for Stay at Home Connect.
How will this year's flu season impact us in this COVID-19 reality? Emory University infectious disease experts Dr. Carlos Del Rio and Dr. Walter Orenstein held a briefing recently to talk about the twindemic and the urgency of getting a flu shot before the end of October.
And I'll give you some personal advice. My daughter is pregnant and she's due in November, late November. I told her to get her flu shot right away because pregnant women are at high risk of severe flu complications. So I told her to get it now, but I am not getting it now. I'm waiting until mid-October to late October to get my flu shot because I want that protection to last me through February. And that's what I'm doing as a healthcare professional.
Pregnant women need to get vaccinated, not only to protect themselves, but also it helps protect their newborn who may be at risk of severe problems, because what they do is they transfer something called antibody across the placenta, and that will protect the infant for some period.
Dr. Del Rio says the shot wanes after about 4 months. He says those with underlying conditions such as diabetes, high blood pressure, or weakened immune systems should be especially careful and get the shot. But for those over the age of 65, it is paramount. The CDC recommends all over the age of 6 months to get a flu shot this year, especially because of COVID-19 and the potential for a twindemic. Some good news. Dr. Del Rio says there was a surprisingly low number of flu cases in the Southern Hemisphere. He's optimistic that if the same prevention efforts for COVID continue here in the United States, it could help reduce transmission of the virus. The CEO of pharmaceutical company Pfizer says there's a good chance the company will know if their COVID-19 vaccine works by the end of October. Albert Bourla says it's unclear if Americans will be able to get a vaccine before 2021 because the issuance of a license is up to federal regulators. He says manufacturing of hundreds of thousands of doses has already begun, and they've expanded their enrollment to include younger participants and more vulnerable populations. Pfizer is one of several vaccine makers enrolling volunteers in Phase 3 trials. Atlanta City Council member Marcy Collier Overstreet hosts the 2020 Election Education Town Hall. The free virtual event allowed residents to ask questions related to the voting process.
That's going to do it for Stay at Home Connect. We'll see you next time.
Hello, I'm Atlanta City Council President Felicia Moore. Did you know the United States has been counting its population since 1790? Census 2020 is fast approaching. Your participation is crucial as it helps to determine where schools, hospitals, and new homes are built, among other services. Billions of federal dollars are allocated based upon census data. The questions are easy, and it should only take you a few minutes. You can respond online, by phone, or by mail. ATL counts. Census 2020. Atlanta is counting on you.
City Council,
It is now 9:30, and we have a quorum, but I would love for Ms. Pulidindi to just do a roll call to verify who's all on the call. So I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Transportation Committee for the Atlanta City Council. And Ms. Pulidindi, let's do a roll call to make sure we know all members are present. Hello? Is anybody on this line?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I am, Mr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am.
Oh, okay. Roll call, Dr. Good one. Let me see how I can. Well, I can do the roll call. So I'm Andre Dickens, Chair. Do we have Vice Chair Ms. Marcy Collier Overstreet? Are you here?
Present.
All right, we got Marcy. What about Antonio Brown?
Present.
JP Mazikite?
Present.
All right, Matt Westmoreland?
Here.
Jennifer Ives?
Yes, sir.
All right, and Amir Farouk?
Yes.
All right, everyone is here. This constitutes a quorum.
President Moore is here as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, President Moore, for being here. So we have a quorum and all members are present. So now I will make a motion that we approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second, Brown.
Okay. And Mr. Brown, I understand you're going to be by voice today. It looks like I may be also. My computer just went out. But we have a motion to approve by Dickens and a second by Brown. Can we prepare to vote? Ms. Pulidini, are you able to communicate? You heard. He's texting me.
Hello, CM Dickens.
Yes?
Hi, this is Legislative Assistant Jasmine Tell. Ms. Pulidini is having issues. She should be back on the line shortly.
Yes, I'm on the line now.
Okay. All right. Great. You know, I'm lost without. So
I apologize.
I've only been doing this 7 years and still can't figure it out. So so I just called. We had a motion for the adoption of the agenda by me, a second by Brown. Now we're ready to vote on the adoption of the agenda.
Wait one moment, please. The vote is open.
And
The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
okay. All right. Next, we will. I make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second, Brown.
All right. It's seconded by Brown. Let's prepare our vote.
One moment, please. Vote is closed. Oh, I'm sorry. One moment. I think the vote is closed. The minutes have been adopted. And, Mr. Chair, if I may, if the remote meeting statement hadn't been read yet, can I read it for the record, please?
Yes, you may.
Okay. This Transportation Committee meeting is being conducted remotely as advertised and as in accordance with OCGA 50-14-1. The meeting will be conducted in conformance with Robert's Rules of Order and the Rules of Council as authorized by the City Code. The public may access the meeting by dialing 877-579-6743, conference ID 831-599-1256. which was noted on the September 11, 2020 public meeting notice. The public may also view the meeting on Channel 26, the City Council's homepage at citycouncil.atlantanga.gov, the Council's YouTube channel, or the Council's Facebook and Twitter pages via @ATL Council. All presentations are available on the Atlanta City Council Transportation Committee page. The agenda was published and made available on September 11th via atlantacitygA.iqm2.com. In addition, the public was able to submit comments via voicemail at 404-330-6059 between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. the day before this meeting. These comments will be played during the public comment portion of this meeting. All persons present on the remote council meeting conference bridge are requested to mute your phones and speakers. Additionally, speakers must be acknowledged by the presiding officer prior to speaking. Each council member is requested to open your Outlook email and minimize the screen. Amendments, substitutes, and informational documents have been distributed to committee members beforehand. Thank you all in advance for your cooperation.
Yes, thank you for that statement. Now that we have approved the agenda and the minutes, now let's listen to the public comment.
My name is Jennifer Brooks. Good morning, Councilmember Dickens and Transportation Committee. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. First, I'd like to speak to Ordinance 20-0-1174, 18-0-1322 about e-scooters, 150-402, 403, and 404 are about enforcement for safety, parking, and use of e-scooters. 105-406 obliges e-scooter vendors to share data with the public. So they've been deployed since July 1st. As of now, there's been no enforcement. And could you please share the data with me? And despite asking you, Councilmember Dickens, for the July e-scooter report, I've not seen it, nor have I seen any data. I've emailed all of you asking that the e-scooter licenses be suspended immediately and for an indefinite period of time. The e-scooters are a menace in my neighborhood. It's time for them to go. Secondly, Councilmember Dickens, could you please share the data regarding the outstanding fines for all the 2019 violations and impounds of the e-scooter vendors? That has never been made public to my knowledge, and it would be good to know how that is standing right now. Thank you all for your service, and please stay safe and healthy.
Greetings to you, committee members and staff, and special greetings to you, citizens of Atlanta, monitoring your government in action. Ben Howard, Senior Advocate, Public Policy Analyst. The Atlanta Planning Advisory Board, which meets this coming Saturday at 10 a.m., is supposed to have committees that mirror the committees of this city council. Since the new president, Debbie Skopczynski, took over, APAT has had no transportation committee. Neighborhood Planning Unit R, currently chaired by Antonita Robinson, and previously chaired by Ricardo Jacobs and by Clovis Clare, before that, has had no transportation committee for years, although the zoning committee of Planning Unit R has been chaired by Renette L. Scott for decades. Residents, professionals, business persons, and stakeholders within Neighborhood Planning Unit R deserve better. On 3 occasions, representatives of a city-certified resident organization, which is also protected under provisions of the United States Housing and Urban Development Department, known as HUD, were denied the right to be placed on the agenda of Neighborhood Planning Unit R to discuss transportation and other matters on behalf of senior citizens and other residents in the proximity of City of Atlanta senior zones. Should you somehow decide to rectify this situation by enacting stronger citizen participation legislation, be advised that any attempt to do so will be met with fierce resistance from the NTU R9. Antonina Robinson, Corliss Clarence, Ricardo Jacobs, Lynette L. Scott, Alfred Fife, Allison Hathaway, and members and supporters of the NTU R9 syndicate.
All right. Does that conclude our public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Good deal. Thank you for those comments. And I did want to respond to one related to the e-scooters. I've asked for the Department of Transportation and the Chief Bicycle Officer for the last few months to prepare this, and the date has been pushed back further and further, but the last date I had was that it's to be expected mid-September. This now marks mid-September, so Mr. Rowan and Ms. Byrne, today, if you can let us know when we can expect this e-scooter report. We've asked for it, so I know Ms. Brooks, the caller that called in, she's emailed about it. And unfortunately, Ms. Brooks, I can't prepare a report, but we have requested it from the department, and they've told us mid-September is the new date, and so here we are. So hopefully we can get that soon. I just sent an email to that effect, and I'm sure Mr. Rowan is on the line. So when he gets his turn, we'll find out more about that. So now let's go on to. I did want to ask council members this while you're on the phone. As you know, we received a notification this morning that the mayor is doing her presentation, her statements at 10, and that is right there in this meeting, obviously in 18 minutes. Are council members interested in stopping this meeting to recess this meeting to listen in on that, or should we continue to do this meeting? Anyone?
No.
All right.
This is Councilmember Farooq. I think we should proceed with our meeting.
Okay. Does anyone believe that we should halt our meeting, recess our meeting?
No.
Okay. All right. Good deal. I asked because we are a body of members, so if any member wanted to do that, we would hear them out. Doesn't mean that we would entertain it completely, or we'd vote on it or something. So anyway, let's proceed. Next,
you're so kind.
What did you say, Mr. Brown?
I said you're so kind.
All right. Thank you. So let's go on to our Department of Aviation quarterly update. Mr. Selden.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Transportation Committee. John Selden, the General Manager of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. This quarter, due to COVID, impacted not only the airport, the airlines, the hospitality business, restaurants, the entire city. And you'll see by our results this quarter that it was quite significant impact to our business here at the airport and the services we provide. So we'll start with the first slide. And that is a picture of our new pedestrian bridge on our north side. As you can see to the lower left, the crosswalk is below it. The intent of these, which will be 4 of them, is to get the passengers off the roadway where the traffic is for drop-off for arrivals and departures, and they will walk across this beautiful pedestrian bridge to get to the parking garage. Next slide. I'm waiting for the slide to come up on the internet.
Mr. Selden, this is Julia. If you could just please continue with your presentation, the slides will advance on their own. There's a slight delay between the live stream and advancing the slides.
Thank you, Julia. I will do that. So today we're going to talk about our operations, our economic generation of finance, grant transportation, safety, employees, and our capital program. We'll give you an update at the end. But I wanted to show you to the right of the screen there our hashtag ATL Strong, Safe, Clean, and Ready, and our ATL.com, ATL Strong website. We have some really good tips, and it's a great show of all the things we are doing at the airport to prevent the spread of the virus. So next slide. So for our economic generation, flight operations for the quarter were down 73% from for the fourth quarter. From 2019 to 2020, we're down 73%. In 2019, we had 232,000 flights for the fourth quarter, and in 2020, we were down to 63,000. As you can see, that's a ticket agent with a mask on, and he has a plexiglass shield in front of him at the ticket counter. And our major airline, Delta, has blocked all middle seats until December 31st. Other carriers are only filling their flights 60% to keep as much social distancing as possible on board the airplanes. Next slide. The next slide is a slide that talks about our calendar year. And even though the numbers are quite significant in the drop, I want you to see that the trend is positive. We are now, April, our low was 20,400 flights, and now we're up in July to 40,135 flights, and we expect this trend to continue, as we discussed during our budget brief, of about a 5% recovery going forward month after month. So things are looking better. Obviously, our next quarterly report will be hopefully better, depending on what happens with the virus and hopefully a vaccine in the near future. Next slide. So there are some bright spots with COVID-19. As you can see, our cargo business is doing better. I mean, cargo flights were on a trend down. In 2019, for the third quarter, we had 3,861, and in 2020, for the third quarter, we were down 5% to 3,660. For the fourth quarter, we actually are up 1%. We went from 3,600 to 3,625 flights, and our metric tons also were up for the quarter, up 1.3%. So we're doing rather well in the cargo business. It's holding. And things are looking good, and hopefully will expand our cargo business. The EVA Airjet picture up on the upper right side is a jet from Taipei that brought a whole bunch of PPE. And you can see the bottom slide, which is a Canadair jet that was converted from passenger traffic to cargo. So business is growing, and there's all kinds of innovation on what to use airplanes for, and our cargo business is looking good. Next slide. In the vein of cargo, Amazon, which has 3 flights a day now, has 167 employees, and they need to add about 200 more, and they're going to increase flights at this time. Their business is going very strongly, and I'll come back to you later today with a paper for Southern Airways. They're going to start helping Amazon Air in flying airplanes in with cargo, and we'll talk about that later when I brief the paper. But we're looking to scale up another 200 employees to help grow our Amazon business here. The problem is it's very hard to hire employees at this time, but it is getting better since the $600 a week CARES, I guess that was the president's package, has expired, and people are now looking for work. So we should hopefully get these employees on board and expand our Amazon Air capability. On May 24th, 2020, we received 100 tons of PPE for the state of Georgia on board that the picture of that airplane in the bottom is an Antonov Russian 124. It's the second largest airplane in the world. They also make a 6-engine version there. That's a 4-engine. And it brought 13 million masks that day to Georgia. So a very, very good day for us back in May. And at the airport, we received 5 million masks from our partners at the FAA, and we are giving out between 3,000 to 4,000 to 5,000 a day to our passengers here that are going through our TSA checkpoint. Next slide. Next slide, we talk about the bread and butter of Hartsfield-Jackson, which is our originating passengers for our fourth quarter. The originating passengers are key for us because they bring business and economic activity to the city of Atlanta, the region, and the state. And they were down in the fourth quarter of fiscal year 19, we had 5.5 million. And in the fourth quarter of fiscal year 20, we were down to 575,000. We are off by 5 million, and that's an 89.67% drop in our originating passengers. But those are the key, those are the ones that go in and out of our front door. Next slide, please. For the year, we were off a little more because the virus started impacting us in March, so we were actually off 5.1 million or 24% for the year of our originating passengers. So for fiscal year 20, instead of having 21 million, we ended up with 16 million for the fiscal year going our originating passengers. Next slide, please. Total passengers, the number that everybody's always very concerned about. For our fourth quarter in 2019, we had 26.1 million passengers for fiscal year 19. Unfortunately, in 2020, we were down to a little over 4 million, which is a 90.7% drop in our total passengers. For the year, next slide, please. For the year of June of 19, fiscal year, we had 109 million, and for fiscal year 20, we had 80 million passengers. So we're down almost 30 million passengers for the fiscal year, which is a 26% drop. Next slide, please. But I do want to talk about our passenger numbers and end in a positive light. If you look at the graph for the calendar year, we had 8.3 million passengers in January of 2020, and we hit bottom in April with 453,000, and by July we're already back up to 2.5 million passengers. So that is also trending in a very good trend. And so far to date, we have 26 million by the end of July. We're looking to end up somewhere in the high 30s by the end of the calendar year. 30 million total, almost 40 million passengers by the end of the calendar year. Next slide. Now we're going to talk about our economic generation capabilities, which is our concessions, parking, and our leasing. So our gross concessions revenue for fiscal year Q4 was gross. This is gross numbers. We were almost at $300 million a quarter in gross revenues for concessions and rent-a-car in 2019, and we ended up right around $50 million for fiscal year 20. That's off almost 84%. We're down $246 million from last year. That's gross. Now, the next slide talks about our share of the revenue, which is the part that the Department of Aviation gets. And in fiscal year 20, we received, the gross numbers were $1,084,000. In fiscal year 20, the gross is $803 million. So that's down $280 million, which is down 25% for the fiscal year 19 versus 20. I'm sorry, now this slide, and the next slide is the aviation concessions and rent-a-car income for the fiscal year Q4. In 2019, we received $43 million, and in fiscal year 20, we received $6 million. That's off $36 million, which is down 86%. And those numbers are better than the gross numbers because our advertising revenue initially with the start of the virus COVID-19, the revenue from our advertisers was strong at that point. but we're down considerably for the quarter. Next slide, please. And our combined rent for the fiscal year 19 versus 20. 19, we received $165 million, and in fiscal year 20, we received $120 million, which is about $45 million off, and we're 27% down for the year. Next slide. Next slide is our parking revenue, which for the fourth quarter for 2019 was $38.5 million, and for fiscal year 20 it was only $2.7 million. We're off by $36 million, which is 93% down. And for the year, fiscal year 19, our revenue for parking was about $148 million, and we ended 2020 at $107 million. We're down $41 million, and that's down 27% for the year. Next slide, please. So overall, when we talk about our revenues and expenses, our revenues through fiscal year 20 is $431 million. That's $156 million below what we budgeted for, and $132 million below fiscal year 19. The good news is our expenses through fiscal year 20 were $443 million, which is $40 million lower than our budget, and $9.9 million versus fiscal 19. We were expecting somewhere around 113 to 114 million passengers, and that's the difference between our budget and where we were for fiscal year 19. Now, these numbers exclude the CARES Act dollars that I briefed you on last session. And we received $338.5 million during the quarter in CARES money that we are eligible to get reimbursed by the FAA. In fiscal year 20, we used $80.9 million, which we discussed last time. $46 million was for debt service, and $35 million was reimbursed for operations. So we have a significant amount of money left going forward for fiscal year 21 and maybe into fiscal year 22. Next slide, please. Ground transportation. When you see this chart, it is very scary on where we went to for taxis and TNC operations. But the picture is very telling. But the TNC operation is recovering. Next slide, please. So for our fiscal year taxi and TNCs, in fiscal year 19 we had 630,000 taxis. For the year, and in fiscal year 20, we had 347,000 taxis. TNCs, on the other hand, we had 2.6 million TNCs in 2019 and 2.2 million in 2020. Overall, the taxis are down 45% year over year, but the TNCs are only down 15%. So the TNCs are still doing very strong going forward. Next slide. For the quarter, which is the true impact of COVID, in 2019 there were 152,000 taxis dispatched, and in 2020 only 8,752 in the fourth quarter. And TNCs did 743,000 in fourth quarter fiscal year 19, and we're down to 80,324, which is a 93%. The taxis had a 93% decline, and the TNCs had an 83% decline. Next slide, which is our safety and security. We have done quite a bit down in our security office, as you all are well aware. Our average wait time for our customers is right around 22 minutes, 21 minutes, and over about 97% of all of our customers during the quarter were out and complete in our security office in 30 minutes or less. We served an average of 6,500 customers a month, and we're doing really well down there. When you look at these numbers, you look at April and May, you can see a considerable drop in the customers served. Obviously, that is due to the virus. People were not expanding their businesses. But you can look by June, the numbers almost doubled up to 9,000 people served. because businesses started coming back at the airport. It's cargo handlers and concessions started reopening, and business started activating. So we're hopeful that this trend continues, and we're doing a really good job getting people their badges at the security office. Next slide, please. I've been in aviation a very long time, well over 35 years, and I've been through many federal inspections. And our TSA inspection that we had for 6 weeks in April and May received 0 discrepancies. I have personally never been involved in a federal inspection, whether it be the TSA or the FAA, where we received 0 discrepancies. Myself and the entire leadership team at Hartsfield-Jackson could not be more proud of our security posture, security department, and the security that we provide here at Hartsfield-Jackson for our customers, employees. 0 findings is a rarity. It was a perfect inspection for our team. Just amazing results, and we're very thankful, and we look forward to continuing that trend. But once you reach the pinnacle, it's very hard to keep that up, but we're going to give it our best shot. Thank you. Next slide, please. For our employees, we hired 43 people last quarter. 33 of them were new hires, and we had 7 promotions, and we had 9 separations during the period. And our training numbers are way down. It took us a while to get started with virtual transition to online training, which is in full swing right now. So you'll see these numbers pick up considerably. Most of our training going forward was in person in class, and now we are transitioning the training, thanks to the Human Resources Department, to online training. So those numbers are going to pick up dramatically. Now I'm going to transition to our capital program. Next slide, please. Our ATL West parking deck, we have opened it at the end of July for employees. The technology systems are still being installed, which is the Peach Pass readers, license plate readers. That's happening right now. We have the air crews parking in the garage and taking the SkyTrain to work. But there's 5,700 spaces on our 7 levels, and we will have all of the technology in place by the end of November, early December, and the project cost us $244 million. We executed this on schedule and on budget, and just a great piece of equipment that will hopefully generate much revenue for us going forward. Next slide. As I talked about earlier, we are installing 4 pedestrian bridges, 2 on the north side, 2 on the south side, that will get our pedestrian traffic off of our roadway and get it elevated up to the mezzanine level that we have built. We will complete the project by June of 2021 for $55 million. 2 of them are open already, and if you turn the slide to the next page, you can see the mezzanine area that we built on the south side by the baggage claim. There's escalators and elevators, a bank of elevators to get you up to that level, and you will cross into the garage via the pedestrian bridges that we have installed. And we are working on vertical transportation in our garages, and once we get that completed, we will have an excellent system for everybody to stay off the roadways going forward, so we can not have traffic trying to get into the airport. Next slide. Another major improvement that we're making during this quiet time, which is our South Security Checkpoint. It will be an expansion of 5 additional lanes. It is now under construction. It will be finished December of 2020, this year. That will give us a total of 9 lanes now on the South Checkpoint. And these lanes will have the latest technology in CT scan and will improve our customer experience and reduce our queue space at our main checkpoint. And next slide, you can see I have some pictures of what it looks like going forward, and they are right on schedule and on budget. And this project we're very excited about this, because one of our continual customer critiques are our lines and our queues for our security checkpoints at the north, the main, and the south. So this will give us some added capabilities, because we truly believe that our customers will come back. We run an outstanding business, and we are planning for the future here at Hartsfield-Jackson with our upgrades that not only did we think were important going forward, but we also thought that our airline partners thought were important to do, even despite the revenue drop that we see. These projects are critical to the future success of Hartsfield-Jackson. Next slide. And our biggest program that we have going is a $330 million project to build 5 gates at the T-North extension, which we will have United and American wholly on the T-North concourse. American will move off of E and come back to T, and it'll be a much better customer experience. As you can see by this picture, we're bending the exit road coming out of the terminal and from the north side. And if you hit the next slide, please, we have a schematic of where the terminal is actually going to go and where the 5 gates are going to go. So it's really going to be a great quality product for our United, American, and Delta customers that fly out of T concourse. We'll have quite a bit of gate capacity without having to go on our plane train. Next slide. And our last project I want to talk about is our plane train west extension turnback, which is going to speed up the turnaround, which is going to give us a 20% increase in capacity on our plane train. We have just started this project. It's a $184 million project that will be done in January of 2023. And what you see in that picture, in that circle, is the over 50-foot diameter tunnel that we are going to dig down. That's where the west curb was, where our parking was, and they're going to extend the track into that tunnel all the way, go straight down and then back towards the terminal. You're looking out to the west there. And that we will also add cars, part of this program, to increase our capacity. Once again, we're adding gates, we're making our train faster, we're adding parking, and we're making traffic less at our terminal because we believe the future is very bright here at Hartsfield-Jackson. Next slide, please. And this concludes my brief. The blue canopies we lit up for several weeks to support our healthcare workers and first responders during the COVID outbreak of the COVID. And the middle picture, you might think is an MD-80, which it is not. The MD-80s are no longer flying. They're all retired, all 120 that were operating out of here. That is a Boeing 717, which is a little smaller. And for Memorial Day, we lit our canopies up in the spirit of the United States. That is my presentation. Thank you very much. If there's any questions, I'm certainly here to answer them.
All right, thank you, General Manager Selden, for this great report of what's going on at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. I heard one theme that you've made a lot is the future is bright. You are clear about that we're going to get out of this, and that's the reason why we're still moving forward with our activities and expansions and all those things. So, thank you for this update. I don't see any council members that have. Oh, I do now. Let's see. Who is this? Mr. McIntyre.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. One quick question for Mr. Selden, and if you have this information at your fingertips, that'd be great. If not, you could just follow up. How does Hartsfield-Jackson compare in terms of our numbers of passengers, flights, et cetera, with other major airports in the nation? Part A and Part B, how do we compare with other major airports throughout the world? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mazzacai. Throughout the nation, I will tell you, the leaders are Denver, Dallas, ourselves. Chicago is doing fairly well, and for a smaller hub, Charlotte is doing fairly well. The rest of the country is not recovering as fast as we are, but we are probably, if not the leader, within the top 3 in the United States. I will tell you, in the world, the Chinese have recovered about 80%, 90% of their domestic capabilities. So the airport in Beijing may be the busiest in the world. If they're flying about 80% of their domestic, I don't know what their split domestic international was, but the Chinese are doing very well. The rest of the world is not. all of the big international hubs are really shut down because they really are international hubs. Domestically, there really is not this mega hub system of Dallas, Denver, and Hartsfield, Jackson that throughout Europe. They're mostly international airports that have a split between domestic and international. Maybe 40-60 or 50-50. We run in domestic around 78% and 22% international. So, and I'm not sure of Beijing, and I can probably get some numbers for you about the Beijing airport and see where we stand with regard to that, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that and everything y'all are doing. It's a tough time, but like you say, the future looks bright. Thank you very much.
All right, let me see if there's anyone else signed up to speak. All right, so I did want to talk a little bit about, you were mentioning employees that we needed to hire and how we got some projects that are definitely going to need some new folks. And, you know, it was difficult to find talent earlier, but now that the, stimulus money is over, maybe people will be looking for jobs. Are these skilled jobs or unskilled? These are just day laborers, workers. Give me a little understanding of what type of, what all we're looking for to complete these tasks.
So we're looking for like the cargo handlers, the people to unload and load planes. Concessionaires are having trouble attracting staff back. Yes, it's actually the people. Airplane cleaners, those kinds of jobs are the ones we're having some problems with. From a security perspective, we're not having any problems with hiring our security people, but it really is the lower level employees, and we're looking for those kinds of employees that that are starting out in their careers or just need to come back to work and get benefits and a job. So they're trying to hire them, and just so you know, Mr. Chairman, our security office is opening on the weekends when required to. If a company needs to get badged, we do not want to be any obstacle to any employees coming back.
Right. Good. Yeah, I just was asking about that. So we want to get people back to work. We want local folks to be hired for these jobs. Okay. I'm sure you guys will be doing some virtual career fairs and hiring in-person stuff. So, thank you. Anybody else got any questions for the general manager? If not, we will end that part of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, let's move on to Section 8, Communication.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item number 1, 20C0074, a communication from Mary Ann Cameron, Chair, Audit Committee, submitting the Performance Audit Report, Renew Atlanta and T-Plus, and the audit team has a presentation for this communication.
Okay. Can we hear from the audit team now?
Yes, good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. This is Amanda Noble, City Auditor, here to present the results of our audit of Renew Atlanta T-Plus. The audit team, you can see listed on the cover of our presentation, Stephanie Jackson, Deputy City Auditor, Matt Urban, our team leader, Brandy Bell, Senior Performance Auditor, and EJ Jones, Performance Auditor. So as you know, Resolution 15R3343 required us to establish a capital project and construction audit function to monitor the Renew Atlanta Infrastructure Bond Program over its lifespan. This audit is our 8th, and right now it's the last scheduled audit of the program. We reassessed controls as the city was implementing the Department of Transportation. Appendix D of the report lists all the prior audit reports with links to our website where they can be found. Next slide, please. So in planning the audit, we considered findings, recommendations, and follow-up from the 7 prior audits of Renew Atlanta controls, practices, and projects. This audit focuses on risk areas we had not previously covered, new and replacement controls that Renew Atlanta staff has implemented since our prior work, previously noted areas of concern, and a reassessment of which controls worked well and which did not. Our specific objectives were to answer the questions, do transaction-level internal controls function to ensure that payments to construction contractors and design consultants are properly supported and allowable? Are entity-level controls functioning to ensure that information about project statuses, schedules, and budgets is communicated in a timely and effective manner to decision makers? Are change orders and charges against allowances and contingencies properly supported, reviewed, and approved? And what is the monthly burn rate for soft costs? Are soft costs on track to match the budgeted amounts? So for our scope, we focused primarily on projects and work from May 2019 through December 2019, although in some cases our audit work covered data from earlier in the program. But May 2019 was when Renew published its baseline list of projects. So basically we're looking at the rebaselined process. Our audit methods, we interviewed staff and contractors, reviewed budget change logs, contracts, change orders, daily inspection reports, and other supporting documents. We reviewed payment applications and invoices for one construction pay app from each of 2 projects and one design pay app from each of 2 projects. We reconciled dashboards to Oracle for 15 projects and validated internal financial data against Oracle and analyzed expenses by cost code. Next slide, please. This slide summarizes our findings. So although budgeted soft costs are within industry standards relative to budgeted construction costs, Renew Atlanta is on track to overspend its administrative budget, which could hinder the program's ability to deliver the complete rebaselined list of projects. In May 2019, as I said, Renew Atlanta presented the rebaseline program budget to the Transportation Committee. The rebaseline budget allocated a total of $65 million for administrative overhead, which covers the contracted project management team, city staff, and general services. From the beginning of the program through December 2019, these administrative costs totaled $49.3 million, leaving $15.7 budgeted for the remaining life of the program through 2024. From February through December 2019, monthly administrative costs averaged just over $1.1 million, nearly triple the planned amount. Renew's cash flow plan spread administrative costs evenly through 2024, so the projection doesn't account for costs that might scale up or down with the needs of any given period. Renew Atlanta lacks a detailed, up-to-date procedures manual that reflects current business practices. The absence of well-defined comprehensive policies creates risk of discontinuity should the program experience staff turnover, in addition to an increased risk of improper or inconsistent business practices. We recommend that Renew Atlanta update their procedures to clearly define responsibilities and requirements for change order review and approval, and the Commissioner agreed. Renew Atlanta's current controls over payments to design consultants and construction contractors are functioning as designed to prevent overpayments and ensure proper review and approval. Also, Renew Atlanta has replaced the project control board with a new set of dashboards to communicate key project and program information, and these dashboards serve as a more effective means of communicating complete and timely information to decision makers. Next slide, please. We'll just go into a little bit more detail on the findings. So this slide shows Exhibit 2, that's on page 9 of the report. And shows that budgeted costs for design and administration are consistent with industry benchmarks. The Renew Atlanta Program Management Plan established a goal that design costs not exceed 15% of the cost of construction, and a target for non-project specific soft costs of 5% of the total $250 million, with additional project specific soft costs up to 10% of the cost of construction. These targets are consistent with industry standards for architecture and engineering design fees, which are 12 to 17% of the estimated cost of construction. And further, it's consistent with a review by the Transportation Research Board of estimated and actual soft costs for over 50 public transportation projects, which found average actual soft costs were 31.3% of the cost of construction. That's 12.4% for preliminary engineering and final design, 15% for project management and construction administration, and 3.8% for insurance and other soft costs. So in total, we expect reasonable soft costs to be no higher than 30 to 40% of the cost of construction. Renew Atlanta staff also told us that they anticipate additional funds not yet reflected in the budget that they don't plan to use to augment the soft cost line, the PM city staff and general services budget. So if the program does obtain additional funds for construction, then the overall administrative budget will be a lower percentage of the construction budget. Next slide, please. This slide shows Exhibit 5 on page 11 of the report. That Renew Atlanta generates and distributes dashboards monthly to communicate project and program information to decision makers. One of the key performance indicators is the Expenditure Performance Index, XPI, that's the last column on the table, which compares total paid cost to total planned value for each project category. The XPI is calculated by dividing the paid amounts by the planned value at a given point in time. And planned value is the column marked PV on the table. Each project category with an XPI of 0.9 or above is marked with a green check mark because it shows that planned work is on schedule. In the case of soft cost, project category 10, however, the green check mark is misleading because the table shows that we spent 18% more than budgeted on administrative overhead. As of December 2019, Renew Atlanta's dashboard showed the program had spent 46% of the total rebaseline budget, but has spent 76% of the total on the budget for the PM, city staff, and general services category. Next slide, please. This shows Exhibit 3 on page 10 of the report, showing that administrative costs were higher than planned February through December 2019. So as I said, monthly average administrative cost spending in these months was $1.1 million per month, and the planned amount was about $372,000. Renew staff explained that the budgeted administrative costs were spread evenly over the months at the direction of prior leadership, although this isn't the pattern they expect. The soft costs will tend to be front-loaded into construction projects. But without a realistic cash flow plan for administrative costs, the program lacks the means to monitor and adjust costs if necessary. Next slide, please. So these were our recommendations related to this issue. To avoid a funding shortfall that could impact the delivery of projects, we recommend Renew Atlanta review administrative costs to identify areas of potential cost savings or adjustments to the budget. We also recommend Renew Atlanta revisit its planned cash flow to spread administrative costs according to projected needs. We further recommended that Renew Atlanta adjust its dashboards to flag the PM, city staff, and general services category when the expenditure performance indicator for that category represents paid amounts greater than a planned value beyond a defined threshold. The Commissioner agreed with the first two recommendations and partly agreed with the third, stating that the XPI icon would be removed from published reports. Next slide, please. Renew Atlanta lacks detailed, up-to-date procedures manual that reflects current business practices. While controls were mostly functioning over change orders and design and construction oversight, areas that we flagged as higher risk based on prior work, we identified inconsistencies in the practices. The staff described various policies to us, but most were informal steps with unclear requirements or based primarily on institutional knowledge of experienced staff. So, for example, Renew Atlanta staff described the process for review and approval of change orders, but we saw inconsistencies in what supporting documents were required and staff responsibilities. Additionally, Renew Atlanta has not maintained current standard operating procedures to address pertinent functions of the design and construction oversight process, such as proper use of field plan checklists and inspection reports and when material delivery tickets are needed. and use of the program's document management system. So the absence of well-defined comprehensive policies creates a risk of discontinuity in program operations if the department staff experiences turnover, and also increases risk of improper or inconsistent business practices. Next slide, please. So to ensure consistency in the change order process, we recommended Renew Atlanta update written policies to clearly define responsibilities and requirements for review and approval. The Commissioner agreed. To allow for analysis and tracking of change orders, Renew Atlanta should implement and maintain a master list of change orders, and the Department agreed. To ensure that design consultants submit all required deliverables, Renew Atlanta should update written policies on plan review checklists for design submittals. The Department agreed. To ensure that work proceeds according to contract requirements, Renew Atlanta should update written policies for use of daily inspection reports and develop written policies on material delivery tickets. The Department agreed. And finally, to ensure that current certificates of liability insurance and builder's risk are on file, Renew Atlanta should coordinate efforts with risk management. The Department partly agreed, but agreed to monitor the status of the insurance on file. Next slide, please. So, let's see. As I said, Renew Atlanta has replaced the project control board with a new set of dashboards to communicate key project and program information. Our prior work identified instances in which the project control board wasn't functioning as intended. These dashboards serve as a more effective means of communicating complete and timely project and program information to decision makers. We tested a sample of 15 projects. We reconciled the encumbrances and paid costs recorded in Renew Atlanta's internal records with the figures recorded in Oracle. All figures reconciled except for one $13,000 overstatement that was corrected the following month, and 3 project components that belonged to 2 projects that we could reconcile but agreed were related to the appropriate projects. We tested the dashboard validation process using the same sample of 15 projects. Renew validates budget and cost data against their separately maintained database to ensure current budgets are shown. The project component IDs and project numbers have not changed from the prior month. Project components are assigned to the correct project and funding source, and encumbrances and paid costs are assigned to the correct project and component. We found the encumbrances and costs were properly validated and reported unchanged, and the validation formula is functioning effectively. So the dashboards, we conclude, are a more effective means of communicating data to decision makers, and it's an improvement over the formerly used project control board. Next slide, please. Controls over payments continue to function effectively to ensure that payments to design consultants and construction contractors are allowable and supported. These controls to ensure payments are properly reviewed and approved remain largely unchanged from the effective controls we reviewed in previous audits. All 4 payments we sampled were reviewed, approved, and supported prior to payment. For each of the 4 payments, we confirmed that the invoice administrator had completed the checklist, verified that there was a notice to proceed and purchase order, and confirmed that the payment complied with the terms and rates of the contracts with no mathematical errors. Of the 4 payments we reviewed, 3 of them, 1 design and 2 construction payments, were paid within 30 days, and all 4 were reflected accurately in Renew Atlanta's internal financial records. Renew Atlanta also kept design costs in line with the stage of design completion. During design, the consultant typically submits plans at 30%, 60%, and 90% completion. One project that we sampled had 90% plans with only 77% of the design budget spent, and the other had 30% plans with 60% in progress and 41% of the design budget spent. So Renew Atlanta's efforts to control design costs reduce risk of overrunning the design budget. Next slide. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Noble. This is a helpful audit report. I do have questions, but before I ask them, I wanted to go directly to Commissioner Rowan so he could respond and suggest what. I'm hearing the echo back there. Somebody mute your phone. I think I hear them. Never mind. Anyway, I wanted to hear from Mr. Rowan first to kind of talk about the recommendation. You guys seemingly have accepted all of the recommendations from the auditors, and I wanted to hear from you about how soon you can meet these audited recommendations, and then I'm going to want to ask some questions about how did we get here so that we don't go back here. So, Mr. Rowan?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Transportation Committee. I may be showing my age here today, but I'm going to be drawing from Paul Harvey and the rest of the story, because I think there are some important dates as we have this discussion about the renew audit that we need to keep in mind. The first date is actually today's date, September 16th, 2020. The second date is the cutoff date for this audit. As it was told to you, this was a May to December audit. So the cutoff for this audit is December 31st, 2019. There's a simple difference between these two dates, and that difference is 260 days. So what has happened in your lives in the past 260 days? Anything of any significance? There was a comment made that we are on track to overspend administrative costs for the program. That's based on costs through December 2019. Also in 2019, it was estimated that based on headlines that stocks were going to end with a bang at a 30% gain, and investors should be optimistic about the first part of 2020. We are also concerned that 25 million people were under a winter weather watch as we headed into 2020, and proof that maybe some things don't change. A 12-year-old got a magnifying glass for Christmas and set his lawn on fire. I only add that one because I was once that 12-year-old. So a lot can change in 260 days. So from the department's perspective, we believe it's a fair audit. We agree with most of the findings of the audit, but it does not reflect where we are today. It reflects where we were in December, and much has changed in that time. Also, I'd like to make three comments as we move forward. The first is related to the audit team. I don't want any of my comments to be construed as negativity or as any attack towards the people who perform the audit. They do their jobs well. They're very thorough, and they're very fair. This is a team of professionals. Audits can be difficult, and overall, I would say this is a fair process with fair findings. In many respects, this audit puts into play details that were already discussed during the rebaselining. We know that the renewed T-SPLOST program was initially thought to be a $1 billion program. After rebaselining, it turns out to be a $500 million program. I don't care to relive the rebaselining process, but we know that was very disruptive and very troublesome to many. So at the time I came on board with the city, we were in a position where we had to start right-sizing the administrative costs and the management team, which is the path that we set on to do. But I would share that there seems to be this fixation about this $1 million per month number. And yes, that was true for much of the first part of their new program, even into 2019 when I started with the city, and through part of 2019. But as I said, 260 days and things have changed. So I do have one simple objection to this document and to this presentation is that I don't believe that straight line financial forecasts based on 2019 data are accurate as we sit here today on September 16th, 2020. This projection that we are going to overrun the administrative soft costs is actually being proven to be incorrect. So when you account for the past 260 days, the narrative changes a little bit. Early in 2019, if you recall from my very first presentation, we talked about PIC, Program Controls, Innovation, and Communication. Project delivery was very important for us as we moved forward. So we were at a time where we had to decrease cost and increase our performance, which is quite a daunting challenge from a management perspective. But during that time, during the rest of 2019, I probably cut about 2/3 of the program management team and replaced some, in fact, in cases with folks who are more seasoned and more experienced, but for the purpose of delivering a team that can deliver. And so, as they say, the proof is in the pudding, and as Paul Harvey would say, in the now for what it's worth department. Let's look at some numbers. Let's compare the first trimester of 2019 with the first trimester of 2020. In 2020, we saw a 40.2% reduction in administrative costs. 40.2% reduction in administrative costs. We also saw a 64.7% increase in project performance, a 175% increase in program efficiency. We are today 48% more efficient as compared to the industry standard that the auditors defined in this audit, to the point that our progress has been recognized nationally by the American Council for Engineering Companies, where we have won both the local award and the national award for management of capital programs. So that's a lot of numbers, but I would simplify it this way. I too used the $1 million per month number and believed it to be too high. And so if you look at a brief summary of how the billings went on the program management side, year one was roughly $12 million. Year two, roughly 12. Year three was roughly 12. Year four was $8 million. Year five, which this body just approved about 2 months ago, was 0. We are actually delivering year five with no increase in the budget. So you can see 12, 12, 12, 8, 0. That is not a straight line. That is a severely downward sloping line, and we are also accommodating for potential changes in the program, specifically for these funds that we may get from other partners, specifically the federal government. A side note that I would share is, when you have a $10 million project, like you do at, say, Cascade Road, $15 million project, you initially see your overhead as percent of total budget as higher earlier because you haven't spent the construction dollars. There's a significant effort at the beginning of the project that doesn't equate to the same level of spend as it does in construction. So I would summarize by saying a lot has changed in the last 260 days. I do agree with the change order comment. We have worked on that, and today are implementing a change order control board for the purpose of having more structure. But as far as this commentary that based on 2019, we are going to overspend administrative soft costs, while that may be true, it's no longer 2019. 260 days have transpired, and a lot has changed. And there was one more thing I wanted to mention. Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I forgot. We did all of this during a global pandemic. So I didn't even share the fact that the team was able to switch off from operations in City Hall and was back up and functioning 4 hours later in a full remote environment. The team also was able to digitize every single process we had within 10 business days. The effort that has been put forth by this team is monumental, and I believe it serves as a model of efficiency during some high-risk periods of time. And so I would close with a quote from the book, The Quantum Leap Strategy, which is an excellent read for anyone looking at significant organizational change. And the quote is, "Everything looks like failure in the middle. You can't bake a cake without getting the kitchen messy. Halfway through surgery, it looks like there's been a murder in the operating room." So I thank you for this opportunity to provide a response on behalf of the hardworking men and women of the Atlanta Department of Transportation.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Rowan. Let me try to ask a series of questions to both of you. Ms. Noble, are you still on the phone?
I am.
Okay. All right. Good. I see you, Ms. I. I'm going to ask a question, then I'm going to go to you, and then I'll probably come back and ask some more. But review again with us, Ms. Noble, the period for which your analysis, your audit was done. I know it ended on December 31st, 2019 was the end date. What was the start date?
Well, most of it was based on the re-baseline project. So most of it went from May through December, although we did look at the administrative costs from February through December. So, and I'd just like to respond to Commissioner Rowan. I mean, I agree a lot has changed. Some of the reason we couldn't release this report earlier was based on the closure of public facilities and the inability of the audit committee to meet to vote to release the report. But the department had our recommendations earlier, and I mean, it's great. It sounds like they've made a lot of progress. I'm happy to hear that. I do just want to say that the resolution requesting the ongoing audits noted that it was for accountability and transparency to offer an opportunity to improve while projects are still in progress. And so obviously when we look at things that are still in progress, by the time the report is out and being discussed, some things will have changed. That's just part of the process.
Okay, so specifically, you're saying that you basically started in March of 19 and went to December of 19. That's what this report consists of after the rebaselining?
Yes.
Okay.
It's mostly May through December 2019, with a little bit of the analysis from prior months, depending on what projects we looked at and what support we were looking at.
Okay. And Mr. Rowan, are you saying that, prior to getting this audit, you and others, or you were at the head of Renew and now Atlanta DOT, you made some of or most of these changes ahead of time?
I am saying from the minute I walked in the door, my goal was to right-size this team for the size of the program, and that's why I agree with many of these findings within this period of time. So from March till about July, we developed our plan. I mean, we can't just send half the team home in the middle of the program. We had to transition work. We had to work towards lowering our cost point. We had a very senior level team. So we spent basically March through July developing the plan. We began implementing it through the summer of 19. In September of 19, we had a very draconian series of cuts. And then again in November, we had a second draconian series of cuts, and we let the program stabilize through the winter. We've continued to tweak the team, but the whole purpose was to manage to the goal that the budget that we were given in the rebaselining, which is why you see that the year 4 reauthorization, which was a year ago, was $8 million versus $12 million. And then this year, the reauthorization was $0. So as I said previously, the challenge was we had to improve performance while downsizing a team. And I believe today we've done just that.
Okay. And rebaselining, we all went through that, and it was painful because we had to say some projects won't get done that the public wanted to have done and we wanted to have completed. And so we bit the bullet, as they say, figured it out, came together and said yes to a new set of projects. How are we today? Do we look like the rebaseline expectations are, within a reasonable possibility that we're going to do them all?
So if you recall from my last update, and this is why I really am loath to use straight line projections, but we had a difficult spring when it came to teeth floss collections. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anyone that the teeth floss collections were off. And in my last update, I reported that we were projecting a $5 million shortfall, but that was based on 2 months of data. Since then, June and July were slightly better, and August was almost back to a pre-COVID type level. So we're watching the revenue side very closely because right now that's the driver. We feel good about the cost on the construction side. One of the things that we did within the revamp of the team is we actually added resources and I've mentioned this a few times before, we've added resources to fight more aggressively with prior rights claims as we relocate utilities within the right-of-way. To date, that has gained the city about $3 million. So it's a cost of maybe a couple $100,000 in a given year, but in all, we put $3 million back into our pocket. So we're very aggressively going after the cost areas that we can control. We're looking how we can change designs to minimize right-of-way. Because when you look at construction costs, the other thing we're not talking about is that in real dollars, the right-of-way and utilities can be 40% of your construction budget. And so we attack the labor, we right-size the team. We also focus on process and measurable metrics to show our improved performance. We're keeping an eye on the cash register. I've talked about how the T-Splosh side is very much like a small business. The revenue is not fixed, but to be this point in COVID and projecting a $5 million shortfall, I'm okay with that. I think we're going to recover, but we're going to continue to monitor that and report that to you all on a quarterly basis. But the big area is we don't want to lay down and play dead when it comes to prior rights. These are $1 million opportunities that we can be more aggressive in defending the city's rights and see really significant gains on these projects. So that's really kind of in line with the agenda I brought in March of 2019 for the program, and we're just now starting to reap the benefits of those initiatives. Did I put everyone to sleep?
No, we're still here.
No.
Councilmember Dickens?
Seems like Councilmember Dickens has temporarily dropped off. Okay. Great.
Oh, you know what? I was on mute, and I was saying, Miss I, go ahead on and speak, and I'm sorry, Miss I, you hit your speaker button, I accepted, and I was talking, and I was on mute. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Dickens. Well, thank you, Ms. Noble and Commissioner Rowan, for being here and for this explanation. I think when it all comes down to it, while we're somewhat interested in what happened in the past, I think that most of us are just interested in, does this mean that projects are threatened, or was this really no surprise to Commissioner Rowan, and you sort of knew that these issues were out there, and any monetary impact may be more having to do with revenue collection from COVID than from surprises in bookkeeping. So I guess that's really my question of, anything that was in the audit, does that make you, does that keep you up at night, and should it keep us up at night of whether people who have projects on the list that we've been talking about are at risk at all? And I think particularly people who have projects that are more in the out years, who have some anxiety. Is my money for my project really in a lockbox? And, I have the amount that you've said that I have. Has any of that changed?
Yeah, so if I could separate your question, the first one being with the things keeping me up at night, what I would say is, and it's why I think this is a very fair audit, these were the things that were keeping me up at night during the period that was covered by the audit. And we've been working to address those as we've moved forward. There's no doubt that with an administrative structure of 1.2 million a month, that was not sustainable. And we've worked very diligently to pull that down. I'm really proud of what our finance team has put together from a controls perspective. I'm proud of what our project controls folks have put together. We are in the process now of rebuilding our construction management team, and I know Councilmember Dickens stays on me about getting deputies in place, and I was going to announce in 2 weeks, introduce you all, and some of you probably met her. We have a deputy commissioner, Jessica Fulton, who comes to us with a tremendous amount of experience on the construction management side, and we're in the process of rebuilding our CM team so that we can manage more with less. So I think we need to separate the issues about projects at risk versus the audit, because it's a fair audit. It reflects the journey that we were taking. We still have work to do. We certainly admit that. And we're happy to continue to report on our progress as far as being more effective as managers go. I would say, though, we've taken really big strides in the last 260 days. For the projects at the back end, the most critical thing to look at, I would say, is going to be this T-SPLOST revenue. And I'm happy to sit down with anyone who wants to see it. I have a big spreadsheet with about 20 different projection scenarios, and they're all fairly pessimistic. And the one that I use that's the most pessimistic is the one that shows about that $5 million shortfall. But we still have time to make that up. And if we have a couple weeks in September, if what I saw in August holds moving forward, I think we're going to be in fine shape. And so really the variable at this point is going to be watching the revenue on the T-SPLOST side, because it's not in a lockbox. It's at the cash register. It's at the point of sale. And so it's a monthly collection that comes in. We compare it to the cash flow we put together, and I think it's fair to say that COVID threw us for a curveball. But based on past collections and where we are, I feel comfortable with where it is, and would again say, based on the update 3 months ago, we were looking at about a $5 million delta to the negative in the projection. But we're continually reprojecting that, and I'm comfortable with where it is. I don't want to see it get bigger. I want to see us start to close that gap as we get into next year. But we'll keep reporting on the revenue side for you.
So I think I know the answer to this question, and I think this is where some of the anxiety comes from. I hope you are not going to overspend in any projects, but to the extent that a particular project goes over, whether it's because of administrative cost or cost of construction materials or something else, you are not going to go over by robbing Peter to pay Paul and pulling from, one project to the other. That has to be only to the extent that you have some buffer built into your numbers. And I think that's what the angst is for the projects in the out years of, well, what if the projects in the closer years, all turn out to be more expensive than you thought, and then you spend the money for the project. And you probably know which project I'm talking about, Commissioner Rowan, that I'm worried about.
Yes, I do.
So I think that's where the anxiety is when I and the public hear about, spending more money than maybe we thought we did or maybe we should have, that when we did the rebaselining, I get you that the tax revenue has to come in to fund that. That's one issue, and that is what it is because we can't change that. But that, Project A is more expensive than we thought, and so you're spending Project J's money, on Project A. That's where I think there's some real concern.
No, I understand. And to your point, from a cost estimate side, the larger complete streets projects all have contingency assigned to them. Admittedly, there are still unknowns that we may encounter once we dig into the ground. The challenge that we're presenting ourselves is, let's look for every possible way we can to either get better pricing or reduce costs. And so on the delivery side, when you get to the construction phase, it's pretty simple. It's how do we minimize the need for right-of-way? How do we minimize utility relocation? And then one that we've really been working on for most of 2020 is how do we make the city of Atlanta a more attractive target for the contractor community? And so we've had, through Department of Procurement, we've had vendor fairs, we've sought input from the Highway Contractors Association, the auditor mentioned that we're paying our bills in 30 days. That right there is one of the strongest differentiators among public sector owners, just how quickly you turn around the bills. And I think we're starting to get attention from the folks we'd like to see pay attention to us, which ultimately the more competition we have reflects in better bid prices. So we're still attacking the cost, and we're still trying to look at ways that we can also impact the pricing on the job. So a lot of variables with that, but as we get into the Cascades, we're right on Cascades' heels. I mean, the power company's been out there since February. Watershed's out there now moving sewers, the projects in procurement. We've got DeKalb Avenue and procurement. So typically those jobs, once we get out of the ground, we have a better feeling for where we're going to be contingency-wise, and we'll continue to report and fine-tune. And I think the message is that it changes every quarter. And that's why we want this transparency through these reports that we're providing, because the world doesn't work in a straight line.
Yeah, and I think I hope this day doesn't come, but I just hope that transparency would continue. If there was a point where you thought some of the projects in the out years weren't going to have the funding that they needed, absolutely, I'd want to know sooner than later, and I'd want to know why. And I don't want the answer to be because this project that we scheduled earlier spent your money. If it's tax revenue didn't come through, that is what it is. But I don't want it to be of, well, this project was twice as expensive, and sorry, you made the rebaselining, but we took your money and spent it,
I understand.
on a different project. Okay. Because we have to have a public meeting about that.
And if it's helpful, we may need to circle back around and just have some cash flow conversations with at the council member level, because I know the project you're talking about, and it's kind of at the tail end of the cash flow, and so your concerns are well founded, and believe me, we're keeping an eye on that one as well.
I mean, and I really did have a little bit more of an impression that there was something of a lockbox of if again, not really on the cash flow coming in, but that you wouldn't take from one project to spend on another project. And I'm hoping I'm hearing that that's not what you plan to do. I don't feel like I've gotten 100% of experience or.
No, I think, Councilmember, I think of it more like a single file line of projects. So we have Project A, Project B, Project C, and they're going to be delivered in that order. So we estimate the cost for the three projects. And that's what you see in the department's budget book. So we have a budget book published that shows all of our cost estimates. So as the collections take place on the T-SPLOST side, each year we have to basically say, okay, these are the pieces that are going to get funded against the T-SPLOST collection. And so it really is, we have to pay for A before we pay for B, before we pay for C, and it's all dependent on the money that comes in. In fact, the schedule is driven by the collection of tax revenue. So it's, so if Project A is the front of the line and it's a $15 million project, the minute we get to $15 million, we commit it to that project, and then we move on and we start worrying about Project B. So then once it's funded, it becomes more of a project delivery issue. Then we move on to the next one. And we're doing a lot of field review, a lot of plan review, looking for areas that we can, like I say, that we can provide value to the city. But it's with the monthly collection of T-SPLOST, it really kind of goes in order of the project as they were outlined in the cash flow.
And I guess my concern is, Project A is a $15 million project because either of increased overhead or increased materials cost or whatever, it becomes a $20 million project. Where's that $5 million coming from? A contingency that was set out specifically for Project A, or something more amorphous than that?
So initially it'll be contingency for Project A. If it exceeds that, then we have to go back and look at the program and see what we can do to. That's why the utilities are so important. We'll have to look to see where we've realized other gains to cover whatever unknowns are driving that price.
Yeah, and I just, I'm sure everybody wants to move on to something else now. I just want to make sure that projects that were on the baseline list that are in the late years don't get gobbled up by overspending on the earlier year projects. That's just the commitment that I want, because that was how I understood we were doing the baselining. These are the projects that we truly feel like we can afford. And we can, we're going to do them in an order, but we truly feel like we can afford these. Now, whatever impact COVID has, the impact COVID has, but on managing our projects well and making people stick to budgets and not adding features and, all of that, I still want everybody to keep to that commitment.
Yes, ma'am, and we're certainly not gold-plating projects. We're sticking to the purpose and need. In fact, in some areas, we're eliminating scope to simplify.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Brown, your question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Rowan and Ms. Noble, for the audit presentation and some of the information that's been given. So I guess my question, Mr. Rowan, is around the MLK corridor. How has the MLK corridor, given all of which we've endured with trying to get it back in alignment of what it was supposed to be in the beginning, how much has that contributed to this audit report and some of the issues that have been raised in which you've been discussing? I was just curious of that, just because I know we've gone through so much with that, and it was something that was actually before you. So I'm just trying to understand how that's played into this.
Yes, sir. So it's a mix of issues, and I'll try to separate a few of them out. The first is that the Renew program is simply a financial contributor to the MLK corridor, and so that number's set. So there's not a lot of management from the team. That was actually a Department of Public Works project prior to DOT. So their folks were handling that. Most of that project has been paid for by FTA or local funds. So it's the same. I would say it's the same technical issues, but it's not having any impact on the Renew T-SPLOST side. But I think what you're going to find with MLK is that it's a great example of my philosophy of projects, that if you have to sacrifice the schedule or sacrifice the budget, we're going to sacrifice the schedule. I know it's been painful and it's taken longer than people had wanted, but in the process of fixing this, we're actually projecting to bring it in at budget. And so that's the most important thing to us, is that we hold the finances, and if we end up having to take it on the chin for taking 6 extra months, that's better than paying. But to your question, that project has Renew money in it, but it didn't get a penny more.
Got you. Understood. Let me ask you this question, just so I have a better understanding, and it kind of speaks to just piggybacking off of what Councilmember I was speaking to. Like, let's take, for example, the bridge in District 3, the bridge by the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, this expensive-ass bridge that we paid for. How does a bridge start out being one amount and then kind of quadruple to a whole nother amount? Is that more along the lines of like the spending, the management of the spending? Is it features being added? Like, I know Councilmember I was speaking about, are costs going to be inflated because of folks wanting to do things differently? So I was just curious, because I think it's important that, because it is a concern of mine that if we have an allocated budget within our Renew Atlanta money, and, as council members, I plan ahead on how I would like to see the money spent, or I'll make a recommendation and you'll say, hey, do you want to use your Renew Atlanta money? So, I just want to understand, what are some of the driving contributors that would result in an overspending, and then and I think you spoke to this a little bit, how are we curing those from continuing to be areas of exposure for ensuring that we stay in alignment with the budget?
No, that's an excellent question, Councilmember Brown. And if I may pivot just a little bit, I don't have any direct experience with the bridge you reference on Northside Drive. However, I suspect, given the time frame, it's very similar to some of the things that happened with the project we just talked about on MLK. There's a real tendency, and I've seen this my whole career, and I'm not speaking specific to anybody, but there's a real tendency on these major public sector projects to push them into construction before they're ready. And that's what happened on MLK. The project started with no right-of-way, no utility coordination, and so the technical team is really basically working on the fly. And one of the things that we have done is we've actually brought in some very seasoned transportation engineers who review everything that is designed by our consultants before it goes out to bid. So in essence, it actually slows down the process in pre-construction. But my belief is that by eliminating risk in pre-construction, we're actually going to be speeding up the process in construction and lowering costs. So, you'd heard me earlier talk about unknown unknowns. That's what gets you. So the more time that we can review plans, we can review the site, we can assess issues, then we're able. It's much cheaper to address them when it's ink on paper versus when we have a $5,000 per hour crew sitting on site wanting to know what to do. And so we've really invested on the plan review side and really bringing more of a value management methodology. But it's this urge to get into construction that I've seen it more often than not just bite the owner in the rear end. And I've seen that happen in multiple states and on 2 continents. So it's a pretty common thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of what drives that is not just, the city trying to get something done, but I also think what drives that is the public opinion about the job in which the city is doing to get the work done, that then becomes a lot of times very politically driven, that sometimes forces the hand of projects moving forward when maybe they shouldn't. And so this was my last question, and I'll yield back to my colleague. I wanted to find out, realistically, I know we outsource a lot when it comes to major construction projects, major development projects. We outsource that work. And I know by doing that, there are some uncertain variables that can occur, whether that's in the construction, whether that's in them doing the job as it's been specified by you all. What does it look like where the Department of Transportation took on those roles and responsibilities? I know it would require an increase in the capacity of the department and also some specialized divisions. But I was just curious of kind of like, is that something realistic that could potentially help curb a lot of what we have been experiencing, even after you put in place kind of these controls to ensure we don't continue going down this path of overspending, mismanagement of funds, those kinds of things? So I'm just curious of your thought process around that.
Yes, sir. I think in many respects we're thinking the same way. If I could back all the way up to the maintenance projects that we do, we have some just outstanding men and women in the maintenance shop who show up, get the job done, they respond to change, and do those basics well. We have an interesting gap, council member. We're looking at it from right now from 100,000 to about 500,000 construction value. That it's too big for us, but it's really too small to treat like a capital project and go get a consultant designer and put it out to bid. And so we're looking at a couple strategies. One being, do we need to bring staff on board where we can do small designs in-house? We think the answer to that is yes. We're also looking at, do we need to be investing in new, better equipment and training for our people so we can expand the depth and breadth of their service offerings? We think the answer to that is yes. But what I would say is it's sort of this crawl before you walk before you run process.
Right.
I don't know that the city is ever going to get to a point that we could build a $40 million MLK corridor project. But could we be doing $1 million worth of sidewalks in-house a year? I think we certainly could. And so our focus right now is more, we're calling them operational improvements. And actually Barrington Brown is leading that effort for us right now to just look at what are the strategies that we can self-perform more, because I think that's actually going to help us on the bigger end, because then we can really focus resources on the major projects that we have in the portfolio if we become a little more self-sufficient on the basic type sidewalks and paving and things that I believe that we could marshal the resources to do in-house. So will the city ever build the Cascade Road complete street? I don't think so, because the risk is so high and the overhead is so high. And we would just have to have a steady flow of those types of projects, because I don't think we could afford the overhead to just sit around and wait for the next job.
Yeah, but could you incorporate a model with independent contractors that work in partnership with the city? They're under the city, but we utilize them when it's necessary, when we have the jobs to bring them in. So we keep them as independent contractors that kind of facilitate this work as the need arises.
Yes, sir. So I hope that Martin Clark doesn't reach out and strangle me for saying this, because we just had this conversation. But back in this operational space with these $100,000, $200,000 type improvement projects, one of the areas we're looking at is, can we bring in a portfolio of on-call contractors? Specifically, can we support the diversity contracting community through our shelter market program? And so could we see an expansion of that program within this range of projects? And the thought being that if you get good at a $100,000 project, then get good at a $200,000 project. And I'm not going to name them, but there was a contractor, and they're still in town. I remember sitting with them about 20 years ago and telling them, if you'll just listen to my project manager, he'll teach you how to build this job. This was maybe a $250,000 sidewalk job. Today, they're doing $15 and $20 million projects. So the potential exists. I think it'll be more, we'll take some smaller contractors, they'll cut their teeth on some operational improvements, and then hopefully kind of grow up where they can do some pretty major projects.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. And I think, you and I speak a lot about looking towards the future and being proactive, especially when we look at transportation, infrastructure and transportation within the city. One last thing, I'm working on a workforce development study, and I was going back and forth with Councilmember Faroki last night, and one of the things I was mentioning was I would love, and you've talked about this before, Commissioner, and I think it's super important that we get back to this conversation. But one thing I think is important is for us to develop, these trade skill programs where we can start training folks to do some of the work that is more of the smaller jobs, like the potholes and the sidewalks that you mentioned, where we could bring folks in and be able to facilitate this work and kind of take that load off of, the immediate team, where we can focus on some of the other areas that need more attention, and it would also assist us in ensuring that, one, we're managing appropriately, and we're aligned with the budget, and we're putting folks back to work. And I remember you talked about creating, this is when you were at Renew and not the Commissioner of Department of Transportation, but I remember when we talked about, hey, how can we put folks back to work, and how can we stay on top of the work that's not getting done, that needs to get done in the city, that's important to the community?
Yeah, you are actually touching on something that's been a 20-year dream of mine, which is why I'm excited to be with the city. Not only the trades within construction, but an area that's often overlooked that has pretty high demand and some decent wages is actually construction inspection. And so,
yeah,
during my days as a private sector consultant, we developed over the course of a decade a training program. And this sounds flippant, but this is what we used to say. The only requirement to get hired was to show up to work on time. We would take care of the rest through training. And that's something that I've really longed to get back to, where we can use the construction industry, but specifically the inspection function, to provide opportunities. I know of quite a few people who came in as inspectors, went on to get college degrees, and are doing quite well for themselves. And it's been a good industry for me and my family, and those opportunities still exist. And so it really is just a willingness to learn. You know, we deal with the elements. It's hot in the summer and cold in the winter, and you get wet on occasion. But that program still exists. I've got some friends in the private sector who I know would be happy to contribute to it. I would be happy to lead efforts, but I want to keep having that conversation, and specifically towards the inspection side. I think we have an opportunity to do just that within DOT.
I love that. Okay, so we'll touch base offline, because I'm definitely moving the workforce development bond study forward over the next 30 days, and love to get you involved in that conversation, because I believe this is the opportunity we can utilize to accomplish that 20-year dream that you've had.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Sound like y'all should meet at the bridge tomorrow. Spare the rest.
That's in a bridge.
All right, Ms. Noble, thank you for staying on for the audit, and Mr. Rowan, thank you. Hang on, Mr. Rowan. There's other items for you on the agenda, and I guess we need to take an action related to this performance audit. So I'll make a motion to file it.
Second, Brown.
Ms. Pulidini.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote?
Mr. Chair, I think I lost my connection, but I'm a yes.
Okay.
Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item will be filed.
All right. The next item, please, and we have other folks on the line for that as well. So, Ms. Pulidini, there?
Item number 2, 20C0075, a communication from Marion Cameron, Chair, Audit Committee, submitting the performance audit report, aviation security.
Okay, council members, I'm going to be making a motion to hold, but I wanted to make sure that you guys understood why. So we have the law department on the line. Ms. Kim Patrick or Vivica Brown, are either of you on the phone?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
All right. Kimberly Patrick, Deputy City Attorney. The law department would recommend that this committee hold the aviation security audit communication until the next committee meeting. The Transportation Security Administration is currently evaluating the audit report for purposes of sharing it with this committee because it contains sensitive security information. We expect to hear back from the TSA next week, and we will share this information that we receive on how to move forward with Ms. Noble and with this committee.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to hold. Is there a second?
Second, Brown.
Okay. All right. We have second by Brown. Are there any comments or questions from council members? I heard 2 voices. Okay. Let's prepare to vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item will be held.
All right. And Ms. Noble, please feel free to contact me prior to the 2 weeks, the next council meeting for this committee to make sure that, that we're all set for your presentation. Because by then, law and PSA and everybody would have, we should be ready by then, but I want to make sure. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's move forward to the ordinances for second reading.
Item number 3, 20-0-1562, an ordinance by Transportation Committee to correct an ordinance number 16-0-1533, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on September 6, 2016, and approved by operation of law on September 15, 2016, on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation, for the purpose of adding an additional funding source for the purchase of permanent and temporary construction easements and necessary rights of way from various property owners for the completion of the Martin Luther King Jr. Drive Complete Street retrofit, and all other provisions to remain unchanged and for other purposes.
All right, let's hear from Mr. Rowan or Ms. Alexander.
I've got this one, sir. Josh Rowan, Commissioner DOT. This is just some cleanup legislation to add a funding source. It has no financial impact on the project.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Brown.
Let's vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 4, 20-0-1563, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2021 Airport Renewal and Extension Fund budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations grant funds in the amount of $33,238,956.00 from the Federal Aviation Administration for grant agreements 3-13-008-122-2020 for the Reconstruct Taxiway E, Taxiway L, Taxiway H, and improve runway 97-27R RSA, regrade infield on north side of runway taxiway C and C and J to N22 projects and for other purposes.
All right, Mr. Selden.
Yes, sir. John Selden, General Manager, Hartsfield Jackson. This paper is just to accept the grant that the FAA is going to give us for the $33 million and then put it into our R&E account. The good piece about this, and again, is that because of COVID, the FAA is funding 100% of this work. Normally, the FAA would fund 75%, and we would have to pay 25%. So the FAA would have paid $25 million, and we would have had to pay $8 million. In this case, the FAA, due to COVID, is paying 100% of this project for us, and we're very thankful for that. Thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve. Just a second.
Second, Matt Kite.
Vote is open. Will everyone please vote?
Hey, Mr. Brown, can you verbalize your vote? Oh, he just said me that his phone dropped. Oh, he's dropped off of this call in, so I guess he's dialing back in now to our conference line. Let's give it a second. All right. Well, let's mark him as away because I'm still not getting any information back that he's going to be back on soon. So let's mark Mr. Brown away on this vote, and we'll just, if we need to, we can come back to it.
Yes, Mr. Chair, one moment, please. Vote is closed. 6 days, 0 nays. Item is favorable. Item number 5, 20-01569, an ordinance by Councilmember Carla Smith authorizing the mayor or her designee to waive the sidewalk requirements of Section 15-09.003 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to provide that if certain subdivision applicant ST-20-002 778 Linwood Drive, Southeast, deposit a dollar amount $4,027.30 equal to the value of the required sidewalk construction into the designated trust fund account for District 1 and for the purposes.
All right, so Ms. Puladini, Mr. Brown is back on. I know we have not taken a new vote. Can you record his previous item and collect his vote now?
Yes, could he just verbally, for the record, say his vote so that we can add it?
Affirmative.
Okay, so the vote for item number 20-01563 will now read favorable 7-0.
Okay, great. All right, now for this next item that you just read in, Ms. Carla Smith and others have asked for this to be held. So I make a motion to hold. Is there a second?
Second, Brown.
Okay. Let us prepare a vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item will be held. Item number 6, 20-01578, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone authorizing the mayor or her designee to install traffic calming devices on Larchwood Road Southwest with certain provisions of Section 138-84B of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and for other purposes.
Ms. Rowan or Ms. Alexander?
This is Barrington Brown, Director of Operations for the Transportation Infrastructure Management, speaking for Ms. Alexander. We recommend that this legislation be moved forward for the traffic calming between MLK and, I apologize, MLK and Willis Mill Road along Larchwood Road. And we recommend to move it forward.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 7, 20-01580, an ordinance by Councilmembers Dustin Hillis and Andre Dickens authorizing the mayor, her designee, to make the intersections of DeFore Avenue Northwest and Seaboard Avenue Northwest, DeFore Avenue Northwest and Marvin Street Northwest, DeFore Avenue Northwest and Montefiore Street Northwest, and DeFore Avenue Northwest and DeFore Place Northwest in the Underwood Hills neighborhood, always stop-controlled intersections, to authorize the Atlanta Department of Transportation to install stop signs at the intersection and for other purposes.
All right. I am going to make a motion to approve. Did you want to comment on this, Mr. Rowan or Ms. Alexander?
Well, again, this is Barrington Brown. The department had no objection.
Okay. All right.
Second, Brown.
I'll make a motion. Got a second by Brown. Let's vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 8, 20-01582, an ordinance by Councilmembers Andrea L. Boone, Matt Westmoreland, Andre Dickens, and Dustin R. Hillis, authorizing the mayor or her designee to rename Cox Drive Southwest to James Allen Jr. Drive, to make certain provisions of Section 138-8 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and for other purposes.
Okay. Now, I think we have to amend this one.
Mr. Chair, the department has requested that this just be held. The amendment is not required.
Oh, okay. So I make a motion to amend. Is there a second? I make to hold, Brown. My bad. Sorry. I make a motion to hold, not amend, to hold.
Second, Brown.
Okay.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item will be held. Item number 9, 20R4317, a resolution by Councilmembers Marcy Collier Overstreet, Matt Westmoreland, Andrea L. Boone, Michael Julian Bond, and Andre Dickens, requesting that the Chief Operating Officer coordinate with the Department of Parks and Recreation, the Atlanta Beltline, Inc., the PATH Foundation, and the Atlanta Beltline Partnership to identify and allocate the funding necessary to complete the Southwest Connector Spur Trail and for other purposes. There's an amendment in your packet to correct the reporting committee from CDHS to Transportation and to correct the date to December 16th in the resolved clause.
I make a motion to. Okay. I'll go ahead and take that motion to amend by Overstreet and second by, you want to second it, Brown?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, let's prepare a vote for the amendment.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. Item has been amended. Mr. Chair?
Yes. I voted.
The item has now been amended. Would the committee like to take action on it?
Yeah, well, I wanted to hear from either Joshua Williams or LaShondra Burke or someone to talk about it.
Well, I'm happy to start the conversation. This is Councilmember Overstreet.
Yeah, go for it, Overstreet. I'm sorry.
So this is just a reiteration that District 11 is the only district that has absolutely no spur, nothing attached to the Beltline, and everyone has agreed that it's important for all of our residents to, feel connected to the Beltline. And this spur started years ago, the actual planning did, yet nothing has happened with that. I am actually not stuck on this exact spur. I just know that District 11 needs to have some type of spur to the Beltline to be a part of the Atlanta Beltline. So just making sure that everyone is back at the table, discussing all of the opportunities and possibilities for how the spur can occur. And we are hoping to get this ball rolling. I just want to thank all of the at-large council members for joining me on this legislation, as well as Councilmember Boone, who has a spur in District 10 and understands the importance of being a part of the Beltline.
Great. Thank you. Go ahead.
I'd like to move approval. I'd like to move approval as amended.
Second, Westmoreland.
All right, we have a proper motion to approve as amended and a second. Let's prepare our vote.
The vote is open.
I'm in the affirmative, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Our next item is number 10, 20R4320, a resolution by Councilmember J.P. Massacite requesting the Atlanta Department of Transportation to partner with the Office of Innovation, Delivery, and Performance to develop a funding plan that provides for the city to annually invest in its road infrastructure at a rate equal to the replacement cycle for all our city streets and roads and for other purposes.
Okay. Mr. Massacite, you want to speak to this?
Yes, I want to move approval, but also would like to say that, this really is about making sure that we invest in our infrastructure. I've been struck by the reports that Mr. Rowan has given in terms of, we are on about a 100-year replacement cycle for our roads, when we, really they only last about 20 to 25 years at best. And so I think it's really important for us to get in a habit of being disciplined and not relying on big bond issues to take care of our roads. It happens all throughout Atlanta, and we really need to be in a place where we are spending regularly every single year at a rate that equals the replacement rate of our roads. It just seems to make sense, and I'd love for the Department of Transportation to come up with some plans that they can bring back to this committee to review and debate prior to our next upcoming budget season, so that we can understand what it would take for us to spend the money the way we need to have our roads properly maintained. I don't know if Mr. Rowan would like to add to that, if he's still on the line. Mr. Rowan?
While we're waiting, I will second. This is Faruqi.
Okay. So I don't know if Mr. Rowan has dropped off, because I've heard Barrington Brown speak on behalf of the department a few times, so he may have had to step away. So we have a proper motion by Masterkite and a second by Faruqi. Let's proceed with a vote.
And Mr. Chairman, I was on hold.
Oh, got you. Did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I'd like to just take a minute. I know I've kind of hogged the show today, but when we look at the One Atlanta strategic plan, we've started taking goals and putting them into buckets, and it's becoming very clear that we have three distinct categories for the city. There's the safety. We talked about that. We're now Vision Zero. We're moving in that direction. There's the role of transit and bus operations. We have passed legislation to dedicate bus lanes. That's a big step in the right direction. And then the last one is just basic engineering, blocking, and tackling with the state of good repair. And I think the legislation presented today, coupled with the one that Councilmember Faruqi brought forth last time, really frames the discussion well. I would propose that we just round this off and say we have about a $2 billion state of good repair challenge. I'm going to take that, and we're going to come back in 2 weeks and actually start the process of reviewing how we can get this done. And it's going to be a combination of are there things from a materials and delivery standpoint that we can look at, maybe change our approach, but also looking at what funding mechanisms are available to us, as well as a benchmarking of Atlanta versus peer cities. And we started that process, and it's some of the results I think you'll find very interesting. And so I don't want to give too much away, but I agree that we need to be looking at how do we invest in the infrastructure, because there is a true economic benefit to the entire region. And I think that's the point I want to make today, is that Atlanta's streets have a regional impact, and that's very important, and we can't lose sight of that. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, sounds good. So let's we've made the motion and second. Let's everyone vote.
Vote is open.
I'm in the affirmative, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, Mr. Westmoreland has voted, and now Mr. Brown is verbal, so yes.
Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. The next item is number 11, 20R4361, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into an airport use and lease agreement with Southern Air, Inc., a cargo carrier airline for operations at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, and for other purposes.
All right, let's hear from Mr. Selden.
Nope. Mr. Selden, are you available?
Yes, sir. Thank you. John Selden, General Manager, Hartsfield Jackson. Southern Air is going to enter into a lease with us for a year and then followed by 3 5-year option periods through 2036. They are going to fly for Amazon, as I discussed in the quarterly brief. Their business is growing for Amazon Air, so they're going to partner with Southern Air is going to start flying here. They're going to do a Baltimore, Hartsfield Jackson, Chicago route, and they have 3 737. They have 737 and 777 aircraft they'll be flying in and out of here.
Okay. Make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Brown.
Vote. Are all votes in, Ms. Pullidini?
The vote is closed now. 78 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 12, 20R4362, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor to execute 2 amendments to the current other transactions agreement, a reimbursable agreement with the Transportation Security Administration for enhanced cleaning of passenger screening checkpoints at Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport and for other purposes.
Mr. Selden.
Yes, sir. This reimbursable agreement is for the electrostatic and deep cleaning we're doing at the TSA checkpoint every night. As part of the $10 billion CARES Act, $54 million was carved out of it for reimbursement for airports to assist in cleaning the TSA checkpoints around the country. This is on a first-come, first-served basis. We already have an approval from the local TSA to submit about a $2.4 million reimbursement, and the cleaning is for 127,000 square feet of space, and we do this nightly, and we're looking forward to getting reimbursed by the TSA for this.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Brown.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 78 nays. This item is favorable. Items 13 to 16 are all resolutions to supplement task order funds. Would the committee like to take these as a block?
Yes, we would.
Okay. Item number 13, 20R4363, a resolution by Transportation Committee supplementing a joint task order fund in an amount not to exceed $6 million and 0 cents for use under 2 quality assurance materials testing, subsurface investigations, and special inspections contracts for contract numbers FC977A Terracon Oasis JV, FC9777B ATLQA, a joint venture to provide inspection, subsurface investigations, and testing during construction of various airport projects for the Department of Aviation on a task order basis. All services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for the purposes. Item number 14, 20R4364, a resolution by Transportation Committee supplementing a task order fund in an amount not to exceed $1 million and 0 cents under contract number FC-9874 on-call electrical services at Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport with Cleveland Electrical Company for the Department of Aviation on a task order basis. All services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for the purposes. Item number 15, 20R4365, a resolution by Transportation Committee supplementing a task order fund in an amount not to exceed $75,000 and 0 cents for use under contract number FC-10534 on-call HVAC testing, adjusting, and balancing services with Total Systems Commissioning, Inc. for the Department of Aviation on a task order basis. All services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for the purposes. Item number 16, 20R4366, a resolution by Transportation Committee supplementing a joint task order fund in an amount not to exceed $1,350,000.00 for use under 3 architectural and engineering design service contracts for contract numbers FC-9621B, Good Van Slyke Architecture, FC-9621C, Holt Consulting Company, LLC, and FC-9621D, Southeastern Engineering, Inc. All services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for the purposes.
Okay, let's hear from Mr. Selden, just in general about these, and then we can make one vote for all of them.
Okay, thank you, sir. For the first joint task order for our quality assurance testing, this company provides subsurface investigations for us. They test the materials that we're building with, and most of all, they do special inspections on the structural members like our pedestrian bridge and our canopy and all of those things, and these guys do a really good job for us. The next paper is for the on-call electrical services. This company provides verification of the loads on our electrical grid. They do surveys of where the electrical distribution system is. They do load monitoring to make sure we keep it balanced, and they do electrical repairs for us. The next paper is for air conditioning balancing. What this company does is test the productivity of each air conditioning and heating system to make sure that they perform as they're designed. They test them and they adjust them to balance it out to make sure that the airport is running from an HVAC position as efficiently as possible, and that the specs of the air conditioning and heating systems meet the design standards that they're supposed to. They also do site surveys for us on our windows and doors to make sure they're energy efficient. The next task order is for 3 small architectural firms that are 50% small business enterprises, and they provide architectural and design for small projects on our airfield, parking decks, roofs, buildings for improvements. And that is it, sir.
All right. I make a motion to approve all of these items, 13 through 18. Is there a second?
Second, Brown.
Let's vote.
Vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Vote is closed. 78 nays. This item is favorable. The next item is number 17, 20R4367, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Carroll Daniel Moody, a joint venture comprised of Carroll Daniel Construction Company and C.B. Moody Construction Company, for project number ISC-C-1200353, Fire Life Safety Enhancement Concourse T at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, in an amount not to exceed $10,641,420.00. All services will be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein and for purposes. And there's an amendment in your packet to attach the iPro report.
All right. Let's hear from, who am I calling on for this one?
I think Sir John Selden would be the appropriate person.
Okay, all right. Let's go.
Yes, sir. $10.5 million to meet the code for emergency egress from our Concourse T. Concourse, this $10 million will update our exit door hardware, our lighting levels in the exits, the signage to get out, reconfigure the jet bridge stairs on the sides of the jet bridge, but most importantly, we'll be adding boarding level exits with additional stairs and exits going forward. This project will take 430 days to complete.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, the item needs to be amended first to attach the iPro report.
Oh, gotcha. All right, make a motion to amend to add the iPro report.
Second, Brown.
Let's vote on the amendment.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item has been amended.
Okay. And now I make a motion to approve as amended. Is there a second?
Second, Brown.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable as amended, and that concludes our legislative items.
All right. Thank you. Are there any comments or questions or anything?
Mr. Chair, I believe we need to go back and reconsider item number 7 and hold it for 2 weeks.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me, Mr. Westmoreland. Colleague, item 7, the author, Dustin Hillard, has requested that we hold it now for 2 weeks. So I make a motion to reconsider 20-0-1580. Is there a second?
Second, Westmoreland.
Second.
Okay. So let's prepare a vote on the reconsideration.
Vote is open.
We have Brown by phone. What's your vote?
Affirmative.
Okay.
Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item will be reconsidered.
Okay, now I make a motion to hold. I'll just make a motion to hold. Is there a second?
Second, Brown.
Second, Overstreet.
Okay, we got a second by Brown.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item will be held.
Okay. All right. So that concludes all of our legislative items. So earlier in the meeting, a public comment was about trying to get the scooter report. Mr. Rowan said he will have that out by Monday of next week. He and his staff will finalize it. So it'll be to the public soon after that. So we should expect that. Just for to talk about a few things. So colleagues, there's I think there were a couple of pedestrian deaths on Donald Lee Hollowell. And we're doing, we've done a lot with Vision Zero, and we're doing a lot with the Department of Transportation, but there's still some corridors in our city where people are crossing 4 lanes of traffic going from one side to the other, and dark corridors without crosswalks, or crosswalks that are so far apart nobody uses them. And, time and time again, almost to the date, we had a death from last year to this year on the same state highway, state road, Donald Lee Hollowell. So we're having conversations, and Dr. Rowan is having conversations with GDOT, others, many people as we can, to kind of bring attention to these safety issues. So I didn't want it to go miss, and I know that there's so many district reps on this call, too. You also have troubling areas around the city. So, let's continue to raise our voices about pedestrian safety as we have done in the past. We talk about, Vision Zero. But some of these things are just immediate needs for our safety. Street racing is going on, and then also people are just not paying attention. They're on their phones as they're driving too fast, and pedestrians, unfortunately, young and not so young, are being impacted by it, and even fatally. So I just wanted to raise that, and we need to continue to push that onto our, transportation officials as well as state officials, et cetera. So more to come.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
what happened, you know, my office, your office, you know, Commissioner Rowan, we were doing a study on Donnelly Hollowell to get the crosswalk installed. And if I'm not mistaken, they went in and did a survey, and we worked with the community to ensure that we could move forward from the survey to help address these issues. Where are we in that conversation?
So Mr. Rowan, you want to give the quick answer on that? I know you're still on.
Yes, sir. Hello?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay. Yes, sir. So to the member's point, the 3 pedestrian hybrid beacons, or the hog signals, those are in progress. The thing to keep in mind is the typical delivery time, which is really driven by manufacturing the equipment, is about 18 months for that type of device. My understanding from talking to GDOT is that in 2 of the areas there's some right-of-way that's required, but they're continuing to work on those. From a City Vision Zero perspective, I take you back to the presentation we gave you that shows that, you know, roughly half of our fatal crashes are on state routes within the city limits. So our cooperation with GDOT is going to be very important. And I think it's time to start kind of shifting the conversation, because I think one thing that we'll all agree on is that the traffic's too fast. And I realized this weekend, as I was watching the news coverage of the street racing, as offended as our sensibilities are by those activities on the weekend, we have hundreds of thousands of people essentially behaving the same way on a daily basis as a matter of their normal routine. So this mindset that I take the speed limit and add 10 or 15 miles an hour to it and figure that that's good enough, that's really causing quite a hazard on our streets. And so, Councilmember Dickens, I thank you for your comments and your continued concern for the safety in the streets and your partnership, because we've got a lot to do. And just my parting shot, we actually have an all-hands-on-deck technical resources meeting tomorrow with GDOT to see what we're able to do from a funding perspective, as well as from a technical perspective, in a shorter amount of time than even 18 months or 2 years.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I was not, happy to hear those things take 18 months, but, that's manufacturing, I guess, with these long beacons and bright lights and all that stuff. But please give me an update after that meeting tomorrow about that you're having with GDOT, and then I'll be sure to share with the colleagues and others. So thank you.
And so I actually failed to mention, and this was something that came out of a conversation that we had. I asked for a proposal yesterday from Georgia Power for a lighting study and lighting project in that area. We want to look at these high-risk areas, and I think one of the simpler things we can implement is just improved lighting. It doesn't fix everything, but it's one of the tools that we should be looking at doing. I apologize, I forgot to mention. We had that discussion actually yesterday.
Great. Thank you. All right. I'm ready to...
Yeah, Mr. Dickens, can I... Oh, I have my button pushed. Can I just say one last thing along these same...
Yes.
The other thing that I think all of the members of this committee were supportive of, and I'm still trying to push, but I think if we can share our voice with the administration and with our colleagues on the Atlanta Public Schools School Board, is I have not forgotten about, and I've had conversations giving people a monthly nudge on getting the application and agreement done so that we can get the speeding cameras up in the school zones. That legislation that was authorized by the General Assembly probably 2 years ago now, and several of our neighboring jurisdictions have implemented it. I really want to see that happen in the city of Atlanta, because we have some schools on very busy roads where that could add to increasing safety, and it doesn't, if it's done right, it doesn't come at any cost to the city of Atlanta. So to whoever in the administration is listening, I hope that agreement is moving forward and we're getting closer to implementing that and getting that program up and running.
Thank you. We'll see who responds. All right, who's ever watching Disney? Okay.
I promise it's not me. I haven't done that in a while.
Is there anyone else? I saw you had your button, Mr. Westmoreland, but I saw it went away. Are you?
Well, no, I'll ask a follow-up. Councilmember Ide, what is your understanding of where that is in the process? On which side of the street is it sitting, and what needs to happen?
My understanding is there is a general agreement that we want to work together and want to do it, and that Atlanta Public Schools will be the applicant to GDOT. But the city of Atlanta does play a big role in this, that we would be involved in processing the tickets, and tickets would could come through our court system. And so I believe that there is an intergovernmental agreement that's being negotiated between the two entities to figure out exactly who has what responsibility and what the revenue split is, so that we certainly get our cost we have more of the implementation of the program done, even though APS is the applicant. And I think that my understanding is that's sort of where it lies right now, is finalizing those details of it. I just wish it would move a little more quickly than it has, because we've been talking about it for a long time, and I've been telling my residents and concerned parents and students and school administrators and teachers that it's coming. So I think that it's on our side of the fence right now, and I hope that we can wrap that up and get that knocked out soon.
Good deal. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Sounds like we're done. All right, thanks. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.